So it's all about the data, folks. We've got RMR tests and DEXA scans here. Hi, this is Lisa. This is Food Noise Be Gone, Season 2, Episode 2. This is the All the Facts episode. We are reviewing our recent DEXA scan and RMR test, which is your resting metabolic rate breath test. So it appears it's the facts that actually matter. All of the data that we gather that I've talked about in the past, that's actually what matters here and what we're going to talk about. Hi, my name is Elisa, and welcome to Food Noise Be Gone. If you don't know me, I have lost over 100 pounds, over 95 on a GLP-1. And on this channel, we discuss what my journey is like, some opinions I have about the weight loss and obesity space, some unpopular opinions, some life updates, progress updates on my journey, some fun fashion as we work through like a changing body and style, and frankly, whatever I want to talk about. Please remember to subscribe, like, comment. Also, if you have any health concerns, please consult with your healthcare providers. So anyway, this week we are going to talk about data and specifically about body composition, a DEXA scan, and an RMR test to actually find out what your resting metabolism is doing on the journey, what your metabolic adaptation, what it is, has it crashed? Is it doing better than expected? We'll find out. So I recently talked about it on Substack. Remember, I'll post the link to Substack. You can check out my unpopular opinions and just what I've written about over there. It's on Thoughts by Elisa or at Food Noise Begun. But today I'm going to go in depth. I reviewed my last DEXA scan, which is every 3 months. I didn't talk about, I've mentioned, but didn't go into the results from my last RMR test, which I did in December for the first time. So we're going to really talk about how things have changed in the last 6 months, because that's when I had my first RMR. So I had a DEXA scan around the same time, about within a week of the RMR test 6 months ago. So we're just going to talk about those results, how things have changed, how they've kept pace and better than expected, maybe where we're headed, where we've come so far, just all the good stuff, really digging into the data. So I'm going to start with the RMR test because I feel like that's the thing that people talk least about, but it's really one of the most important pieces of data. In the weight loss space specifically, there's a lot of angst amongst both the fitness crowd, the health, kind of the old school crowd that is just like better habits, the gym bros, the health coaches, the kind of the anti-obesity medication crowd, anti-GLP-1 crowd, versus the folks that have been battling this disease for a long time, have tried all the things, and they're like, hey, what you're telling me just doesn't work. Moving more, moving more, eating less doesn't work. It's not all about calories in, calories out. So I'm here to kind of like break some myths, but really just like get the data to support the facts, because while our feelings are valid, science is science and math is math. So I'm going to break down why people say that calories in, calories in doesn't work, and why it is all about calories in, calories out. So our metabolism really is taking in energy, what we eat, that's the intake, and what it burns is the out. Calories in, calories out. Calories are just a measure of energy. So the resting metabolic rate, it's a breath test, and it uses what you're exhaling basically. You can Google it up. Maybe we'll put the definition of RMR, how the RMR test works out here. But it basically says what your body's going to burn at rest, basically not doing anything, resting metabolic rate before activity, before exercise. So you burn most of your calories at rest. There's a saying that goes, you cannot outrun or out exercise a bad diet. And that's because your base metabolic rate, sometimes you'll hear basal metabolic rate, which is very hard to actually measure, but resting metabolic rate you can measure. You can't out exercise that because exercise really activity just accounts for a few hundred calories. Most of your activity is even non-exercise. So even beyond resting metabolism, most of your active calories are also still not burned in intentional exercise. That was a non-exercise active um activity neat. Yeah, so exercise is like kind of a bonus, but it's good for your heart, it's good for your muscles, it's good for your bones, right? Exercise is good for your body, but it's not really how you certainly cardiovascular, it's good for your heart, but it's not really how you fix the metabolic equation. So, one of the most important things on a diet, in a cut, trying to lose weight is to lose fat, right? And when you go on a diet, you reduce your calories to get in a deficit so that you're burning more than you're taking in. So your calories out are larger than your calories in, so that you're in a deficit, just like a bank account, right? Wouldn't want to be in a bank account on a budget or a deficit, but you do. You want your budget to be a deficit from a calorie perspective so that you lose fat. So when you do that, your body is like a brilliant animal, a very advanced machine. It basically tries to seek balance, or in the case of obese folks, it tries to seek a surplus balance. So, a natural state for someone who is perhaps always gaining weight or always being overweight or obese is to always be in a surplus. So, your metabolism, what you burn, is always trying to be a little less than what you're taking in, right? And a person who's just like a normal weight person, the body's seeking that perfect balance. So when you go on a diet, your metabolism tries to respond and get to balance. So you lose 20, 30 pounds, and then all of a sudden you didn't change anything, but you stopped losing weight because your metabolism just kind of adapted to your new intake, right? So that they call that metabolic adaptation. People will interpret that as starvation mode, right? You starved your metabolism into not burning anything. Well, it's kind of true, kind of not true. If you are in a true deficit, you will lose weight, but your metabolism will adapt and you will no longer be in a deficit. So both can be true, but it's because of your metabolic burn rate has gone down too far and you are no longer in a deficit, right? You can be eating 1,200 calories today, be in a deficit, and then in 6 months, you might only be burning 1,200 calories, so you're no longer in a deficit and you are just maintaining your weight. Or you're perhaps, let's say you went to 1,400 calories, you were losing weight, great, you keep doing the same thing, but then you're smaller, your body doesn't require as much energy, and your metabolism is adapted, both because you're smaller and because you're eating perhaps just a little too deep of a cut. And so your metabolism will adapt, often at a rate greater than the amount of weight you're losing. So if you lose 20% of your weight and your metabolism goes down by 30%, you see how things will get out of whack. So that is why I decided I didn't want to guess at what my metabolism was doing. I wanted all the facts. So I'm like, how much am I burning? Not just the estimate from my Apple Watch, but how much am I burning? And then what is the actual result? What is my actual body composition? So then I do my DEXA scan, right? Which we'll talk about in a little bit. So anyway, what did I find out between getting my RMR test in December and getting it now, 6 months later? Well, what I found was that I'd lost about 28 pounds, 27, 28 pounds. And I believe that equals about 13% change in weight. And we'll talk about the DEXA, but all that weight I lost for the last 2 DEXAs was pure fat. So my lean mass is totally stable. So anyway, I lost about 28 pounds, and that's about 13% of my body weight change. But my metabolism only adapted by 6%. That means my weight loss outpaced my metabolic adaptation, which is exactly what you want, right? You want your metabolic adaptation to reduce at a slower rate or a more shallow slope than your weight. So we achieved that. You certainly would be expected if it was in line. What you don't want it to do is exceed. Again, you don't want your metabolism to go down by 30% while your weight's only gone down by 20%. So I don't know what my metabolism was when I started. I started back in January of last year, about a month before I started GLP-1. So my first test was at the end of November. So I'm sure there was quite a bit of metabolic adaptation. But based on where my weight was, my metabolism should have adapted far more. On my DEXA scan, it estimates that my BMR or my RMR would be all the way down to 1497, but my actual RMR said that I was at 1685. They did say what would it estimate. The RMR estimate had me at 1631 as opposed to the DEXA estimate. But in both cases, my actual test showed me at 1685, which means I exceeded both the more conservative and more aggressive estimate of what my metabolism should be burning at. So I'm pretty happy with that. If we were at, oh yeah, the RMR result had me at just under 1,500 calories, and my actual result was just under 1,700 calories. So I basically beat it by almost 200 calories, which is great from an estimate perspective, and just great that my weight reduced by basically twice as much as my metabolism did. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a win. It's probably unrealistic to think my metabolism would have stayed completely stable or gone up. I believe once I get into maintenance, I will have the opportunity to actually improve my metabolism. And once I get a chance to basically be in maintenance and perhaps improve my muscle mass overall, and I'm no longer in a cut, that would be the real opportunity to basically really improve my overall burn of calories. But that is something to come in the future. Right now, we just want to stay ahead of the loss, and we're doing that. So it's great. You know, it would be totally legit if I was seeing my metabolism crash, that my coach and I, my nutritionist, weight loss coach, and or dietitian that I also work with, or my obesity care doctor, that we would make some changes. So these results, instead of saying, oh, we need to make a change, they're actually really validating that we are on the right track. And at the end of the day, it's really comforting to know. I mean, I know my results have been positive, so it makes sense that we are showing up on the right track. But it's the actual information, because the scale is just a number of size. You hear about skinny fat all the time. If my body composition wasn't great, I would still be maybe smaller, but wouldn't be happy with how I looked, and I wouldn't know why, and it would be because my composition was off. If I was no longer losing any weight, like when I used to only be able to lose 20 or 30 pounds, it'd probably be because my metabolism had crashed or adapted to the point of me burning less calories and therefore no longer being in a deficit. Because at the end of the day, it is calories in, calories out. Unfortunately, some people's metabolism just does run slower. Mine is that, and I believe my metabolism likes to have me be in an energy surplus so that I can put on weight. That's my natural state. Luckily, I'm on medication and working with a lot of professionals, so they are actually helping me lose weight instead of put on weight, right? Reversing the disease. So that's what we're working on, and that's the RMR test, and I just think it's really important to know the facts, to know how your metabolism's actually working. A lot of people think they are more active or are misestimating what their metabolism is, not understanding that when they lose weight, your metabolism does change. You are smaller, your body no longer takes as many calories to function. When I was 100 pounds heavier, my metabolism took more energy to function. So there is that. So let's go ahead and get into the results. Those are so fun. So I do have, right, again, every 6 months, but kind of going back to 6 months ago versus 3 months ago, 28 pounds over the last 6 months, only about 8 pounds in the last 3 months. My total weight was 192.9 when I measured it in March, and it was 208.3 when I measured it the first week of December. Currently, I was ironically at 184.4, which is a scale weight that has been haunting me for a couple weeks, sometimes the high, sometimes the low. But it is ironically, it was not the weight that I had on the scale this day, but then to go in and have the DEXA weight when I laid on there be that 184.4, like to the 10th. It was just funny. So I was laughing about that with ChatGPT, talking over the results. I'm like, gosh, that 184.4 must be my new lucky number. Anyway, yay, it does show me in no longer obese weight from a height weight proportion. So there's that. I'm just overweight, kids. So anyway, that is, it goes all the way back. So I've been doing these since last June. So for a whole year, I have a year, but the current printout only goes back to September. So it only shows the last 4 results. But anyway, I'm really just talking about going back to December. So the last 3 results, the current June, March, and December. So from 208 down to 184, which is great. Oh, let's see. What else do we have? Oh, another really good one is my bone mass. When I got my very first DEXA, which was again a year ago, was exactly 6.0, and it's currently 6.0. It shows like a slight variance, 6.2, 6.1, but those were just kind of weird, erroneous, I believe, variances. The very first scan was 6.0, and it's currently been 6.0 for the last 2 scans. The headline here is that I did lose a tiny bit of lean tissue between last June's very first DEXA and the September DEXA, and then again, like 2 more pounds of lean mass, and then that can be organs, that can just be your body getting smaller. I've gotten stronger, so I know I'm not like losing muscle per se functionally. But we lost a few pounds in the first one, and then we just lost, I think, 2 pounds of lean tissue between September and December. And then since December, I've stayed at 115.4 pounds of lean mass. So I've been super stable. That means all the weight I've lost to go from 208.3 to 184.4, which is, I believe, so if we go 194, so it's 20, I guess it's 24 pounds, 27 pounds. Maybe it was 27 pounds from the week or 2 before when I took the RMR test. I will clarify that maybe in the overlays of this video, but that is what shows here on the DEXA report. So I'll flash that up. But yeah, the 115 pounds of consistent lean mass is super exciting. The fat tissue, just in the last 6 months, I've gone from 86.8 pounds of fat to 63.1 pounds of fat. So that is super exciting. I believe that is 23.7 pounds of fat that I've lost in the last 6 months, which is super exciting. The other thing that's, I believe, really interesting is just the percentage. So my percent body fat 6 months ago was 41.7 in early December. And right now it's at 34.2%. So again, the lean mass has stayed stable. The fat tissue in pounds has gone down by several pounds, but the percentage, because it's like a percentage of your total body mass, has really gone down, 34.2%. One of my goals, so I kind of have 3 goals. I have so much space in my Instagram header. So I say my goal weight's 150, right? I don't know if that's achievable, just given my steady lean mass of 115 pounds, because that would put me in some really low body fat. But I basically have 3 goals. And if I hit any one or more than one of those goals, those are check-in points where I have to be like, am I at goal? Is the other goal arbitrary? They are all right now directional. I'm not at any of them, but they are sub 30% body fat, a size 6, and then 150 pounds, which is the very top of normal. Technically 154.4 pounds is, I believe, the highest pound rate in the normal BMI. So I've set my goal weight 150 pounds. So we are very getting pretty close to 30 at 34.2 to that 30% body fat. So that's really exciting. We're currently sitting in a slightly loose size 10 and medium. So I would say we're probably by fall going to be at a size 8. So we're getting there. I do plan on taking, I think I mentioned when I did the check-in about DEXA last time, I believe I mentioned maybe taking a maintenance break just because I think it's a really long journey and it'll have been not quite 2 years, but a really long time to be in a cut. And I want to take not just a physical break from being in a cut, but mental break and really check in wherever I am, whether I've hit any of those three metrics of 30% body fat, size 6, or 150 pounds, regardless of where I am. If I've hit any of those goals, I want to sit with just how I feel, what maintenance calories feel like. Does it feel better just to exercise and try to build muscle to improve my metabolism at that point? And then maybe I do a cut again in the future. I don't know. I want to take at least 2 or 3 months off at the end of the year. I'll go ahead in the beginning of December, get my DEXA scan. So it'll be like 2 DEXA scans from now. And I'll also get an updated RMR test. I'll do those every 6 months. They're kind of pricey, so I'm not going to go as often for those. And I think you're not going to see as much of a change for those. Like I measure my waist once a month because that's really when you can see measurement differences. You need like every week you would not see that much of a change in your like waist circumference. So I measure my waist about once a month. I do DEXAs every 3 months so that you actually have something to see a difference. And the RMR test I'm going to be doing at 6 month intervals. So that's why I think we all rely on weight because you can literally weigh yourself every day. But you get blood work, you do your annual blood work with your doctor. I'll be doing the RMR every 6 months, my DEXA scans every 3 months. You can take your blood pressure as often as you want. My pulse rate gets measured every day, all the time, throughout the day on my wrist. So kind of all the metrics have like a different iteration and you're just looking for positive progress. And that's really what I'm focused on is positive progress. So let's see, is there any other highlights? Oh, my visceral fat has continued to reduce as a big one. That's like the fat amongst your internal organs. So that has gone from 3.31 pounds to 3.20 pounds. So it's not like a massive drop. It's only about what? I don't know, not what it's like 1.11 pounds, but I'll take it. A tenth of a pound difference, still less than it was previously. So I think that's positive. When I started, I think I was like in the 5-ish pounds. I don't know. It was like 5 or 6 or 7 pounds. I can't remember. I will pull that up, flash that up here since the report I printed only has last 4, so it doesn't go all the way back to June. But now we're at 3.2. My goal there, if I was to add any additional goals, would be to get down to 1 pound of visceral fat. So there's that. But I think that is a interesting piece. Another interesting, because I know my weight loss coach thought this was really interesting, as did ChatGPT, because I gave all of these reports in ChatGPT and said, please analyze. Then I gave the TLDR summary to my coach. So in the Android, which is like the torso region, it did go I went from 49.8%, I believe that was fat, to, so Android has gone from December of 8.5 pounds of fat to 5.7 pounds of fat. Means I've lost about 3 pounds, slightly less than 3 pounds of fat in the Android region. And I will define on the screen what Android stands for. My arms and legs, I know basically I started off slightly. Apparently, I did some additional analysis. I was slightly off before my injuries last summer. And I finally returned to that kind of pre-injury balance between my right and left leg. So they're still a little bit out of balance, but they're actually returned to baseline, which is great. And our trunk, which is kind of definitely the torso. So the fat total from there went in December from 46.7 to 32.4. So that's super positive, right? That's a really big
shift. We like that change. So that, along with the other things, my legs have gone from a fat total of 27.1 to 20.5. That's like almost 7 pounds of fat less in my legs, which I love that too. Like, all of these numbers are just super interesting, really exciting. And then the fat in my arms has gone from 10.7 to 8.1. Like 2 pounds of fat in your arms, that's a lot. Um, so yeah, the percentages are just super interesting. The android percentage has gone from, in December, of 49.6 to 38.8. And the gynoid, which I'll just again define all that stuff, the gynoid has gone from 43.2% to 35.3%. And that just the total percentage has gone from 41.7 to 30. Again, I read this off before, to 34.2, which is 86.8 pounds to 63.1 pounds of fat. So I've definitely, it's lost some lean mass in my legs, which is interesting. Don't necessarily love that, but I think that's normal. They've overall slimmed down, but I think the muscle, I lift heavier than I did last fall, so I feel like that's positive. My arms had lost lean tissue and now they've bounced back up because my DEXA scans had been at 12.5 pounds. They dipped and now it's back to 12.5 pounds, which is interesting. It's almost like maybe it was a misread last time. I wonder, because I thought that was odd. But the same thing in my trunk is that it had dipped from September, but then my trunk lean mass has gone back up to go from December of 51.9. Now it's 54.3. So I think I built some back muscle. I am trying to work towards pull-ups. So we're doing a lot of back exercises and I've been getting stronger there. So I'm doing assisted parallel hand pull-ups at the gym. So meaning your legs are on a bench and it's weighted to counterbalance. So you're only maybe pulling like a quarter or a third of your body weight up, but it's just kind of fun to do. And I started doing that. I was scared the downstairs part of the gym and I did it. So proud of me for that. So yeah, our lean mass here it's just so steady. Like the most I lost was like 2 pounds of lean mass back between September and December. And then it's just been like 115.4, 115.2, 115.4. So 115.4 of lean mass is really the headline here, in the down to 34% body fat and basically losing twice as much weight as my metabolism has reduced. So minimizing adaptation. Those are the headlines. Some sub headlines of my legs getting back to baseline, to definitely having reduced fat through the middle section, continue to reduce even just by a small amount of that visceral fat. Those are all just like the data is doing what we want the data to do, showing us that we are in fact getting healthier, better composition. Our metabolism is really holding strong. We can stay the course. We don't have to make any wild adjustments. We're not doing anything wrong. It's comforting to know, especially when in this process things are slow. It's like, oh, are we doing something wrong? Do we have to react, make wild adjustments? I think one of the things, the peace, the calmness that being on medication, finally doing something that works to bring everything into normal balance, is knowing the data, the confirmation that what we're doing is working. It's just so satisfying. So satisfying just being, having positive information. I'm going to just like go down the regional assessment because I think it's super interesting. So the arms are currently 38.1% fat. The legs are 32.1% fat. So getting lean in the leg, which is not that surprising. My trunk is 36.6% fat. Android region is 39.1% fat. The gynoid region is 36.2% for a net of 34.2%. The trunk is 88 pounds of the 184.4. The legs are 63 pounds. So the most heavy part of my body after my trunk is my legs. That's makes sense then why I've dropped the most fat in my legs. So those are really my legs are really where things are carrying out from an overall lean mass perspective. I'm lifting really heavy when it comes to legs, although I wish I still can't quite lift a barbell. Barbell is 45 pounds. I'm lifting 40 pounds, 20 each dumbbells. So I'm almost there. So close. I just got some adjustable dumbbells. So hopefully we'll get to a barbell soon. We can do barbell squats. I also cannot do barbell curls yet. I think I can do maybe 15, but I would do 12.5 yesterday in each arm, which would be like 25 pounds. So I'm not quite at 45 pounds for barbell curls yet, but we're getting there. We'll work on it. And anyway, get your DEXAs, folks. Body Spec is only $50. I don't have any sort of discount code or anything like that, although I think I can put a link down in the thing. But anyway, not sponsored. They just do, I believe. If you have a Body Spec near you, they do have both mobile and brick and mortar. If you have one, I'm pretty sure they're like the cheapest out there. They have a handful of locations around the country. If you have one near you, they're $50. Other places might run $150. So Body Spec by far, if you have one near you, is the best. They're regular DEXA machines. I think it's it's best if you get one to keep going back to the same place because then your results will be in their system. You'll get the comparison reports. And if you're measuring on the same machine, you're going to get most comparable results versus if I go to someone else's DEXA, they'll be calibrated different. Things might be a little off. So it'll just be less. I always go on Sunday. I always go at 10 a.m. So I don't eat before. So everything's just super consistent and try to reduce the variables, just like you do when you get up in the morning and weigh yourself. Reduce your variables. So anyway, I think, what does it say here? It says women 50 to 59. That's me. Like the average woman in the 20th to 40th percentile is between 27% and 32% fat. So me wanting to be sub 30 puts me in the 20th to 40th percentile. I'm currently in the 40th to 60th percentile at 34 because 32 to 37% in my age range, 40 to 60th percentile. If you get down to less than 27%, so that's going to be crazy, right? Which would probably get me if I was at goal 150 and like 25% body fat. I think I would be in the 0 to 20th percentile. That's where that would put me. So it's so interesting, all of these numbers. I'll flash up a couple of these pages. They'll be super interesting. Anyway, catch you next week for some fun fashion and silhouette updates. Until next week, do always be gone.